Good morning, everybody. GM. Welcome to Takeoff Tuesday. We are 30 days away from our. And price goes up at midnight, so get your tickets today. Get your tickets today. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with a bunch of these guys and gals. And remember, as a VIP ticket holder, you're gonna get lunch with these people. Eric Gunderson. Really looking forward to spending time with Jeff Armstrong. That guy's something else. This Bill guy, excited to meet him. Troy Dunn, got to spend a few days with him and got to go to lunch with him once. That guy's on some next level stuff. Awesome. All systems are working. And Cragen on understanding bankruptcies and the actual positives of it. When I got to meet him and go through that training, awesome. Early bird price expires today. Okay. Go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so here we go with the quote of the day. This is a new one. The young do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it, generation after generation. That's awesome. That is awesome. Therefore they attempt it and achieve it. Sometimes that little voice in your mind says, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know. It's so hard. That little voice wants to tell you it's impossible, but go for it. There's other people that are watching you that you don't even realize you're influencing. So push through. Make sure you find more reasons than just money, I guess. I mean, money's a great reason. It's a good measuring stick. You can really tell how well you're doing by you just check your account. But it is not the end all be all. So anyway, my point is stay focused, be prudent, and attempt the impossible. Seriously, think about where you were 5 years ago and where you are now and where you want to be 5 years from now. And the giant leaps. We didn't just do a little incremental growth, we did giant leaps. And those giant leaps were based off of other giant leaps. So where are you going to be 5 years from now? It's really exciting to think about. Really exciting to think about. Okay. So we are 30 days away from the fall summit. Like I said earlier, the price is going up at midnight tonight. So get your tickets now. There should be some emails going out about that as well. If they didn't already drop, they might have come out yesterday. Anyway, VIP price doesn't change. So if you still want a VIP ticket, there are, I put it in my notes, there are 42 VIP tickets left. 58 have been claimed. Okay, awesome. Well, here's something that we're building the habit of doing.
Hey, Michael, what were you saying about the tickets? What kind of tickets are those?
I was saying VIP ticket
You're breaking up.
versus the oh
Are you talking about the VIP?
yeah, the VIP ticket stays the same. It's just a general admission ticket that the price is going up at midnight.
Yeah, the VIP is
Yeah, but what were you saying that it was taken certain number?
58 out of 100. There's 100 VIPs.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, that's the
Yeah.
one I couldn't hear. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had a crazy storm come through last night. We got like an inch of rain in half an hour. It was so much rain. It was amazing. But the internet's out, so we're on hotspot again. And if the hotspot fails, don't worry, folks. We got Starlink. I just didn't want to mess around with that too much in the hotspots quick. But yeah, that's one reason why the connection was silly. Anyway, 42 VIP tickets left. A couple hundred general admission tickets left. But like I said, at midnight they're going up. So get a couple extra so that you can not necessarily give them away, but sell them at that discounted price. You're going to run into people who want it. People go spend $1,000 to $5,000 on seminars like this all the time, and so for it to only to be 200 or 250 is a super deal, and it's your job to convey that when you're out there talking to people, because sometimes price will do it just enough, right? If we change the price to 2,000, automatically everyone assumes it's more valuable. And you need to fight that bias and say, hey, it is that valuable. We're only charging 200 or 250. So keep that in mind when you're talking to people. Perception. Okay, we're going to go through this real quick because we're building habits, and then we're going to turn it over to the man of the hour. So here we go. Self-confidence formula. The way to make the difference. First, I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here now promise to render such action. Second, I understand that the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. Third, I know through the principle of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of attaining the object or position I desire. Therefore, I will devote 10 minutes daily to demanding of myself the development of self-confidence. Fourth, I've clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim, and I will always work until I develop sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. Fifth, I fully realize that wealth or position can long endure when built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will only actions that benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces I wish to use in the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve them. I've eliminated hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism. And I've developed a love for all of humanity, for I know that a positive attitude towards others will always bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I'll believe in them and in myself. I will sign my name to this formula, committed to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day with full faith that it will gradually influence my thoughts and actions, so I will become a self-reliant and successful person. GM to that. Becoming self-reliant. That's literally what you're learning here at Renatus, is how to become the most self-reliant person possible. Controlling your own assets, controlling your own income, controlling your own time. You're just going to do it inside the framework of the Renatus ICM program. But it'll change everything about how you work for the rest of your life if you take this seriously. So we're here to help. Okay, next. Initiative and leadership. Having chosen a definite chief aim as my life's work, I now understand it to be my duty to transform this purpose into reality. Therefore, I will form the habit of taking some definite action each day that will carry me one step near the attainment of my definite chief aim. I know that procrastination is a deadly enemy of all who become leaders in any undertaking, and that I will eliminate this habit from my makeup by A, doing some one definite thing each day that ought to be done without anyone telling me to do it. B, looking around until I find at least one thing I can do each day that I have not been in the habit of doing and that will be of value to others without expectation of pay. C, telling at least one person or a whole team each day of the value of practicing this habit of doing something that ought to be done without being told to do it. I can see that the muscles of the body become strong in proportion to the extent they are used. Therefore, I understand that the habit of initiative also becomes fixed in proportion to the extent that it is practiced. I realize that the place to begin developing this habit of initiative is in the small, commonplace things connected to my daily work. Therefore, I will go at my work each day as if I were doing it solely for the purpose of developing this necessary habit of initiative. I understand that by practicing this habit of taking the initiative in connection with my daily work, I will not only be developing that habit, but also be attracting the attention of those who will place greater value on my services as a result of this practice. And GM to that. Okay, fantastic. I just saw a comment in the chat. Okay, looking good. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Takeoff Tuesday. Partners in a ground up family luxury project. Speaking of ground up, we got one of the most passionate and experienced real estate investors on the block here, training us to think bigger, do more, get clarity on what it is that we're actually working on, and be able to turn everything around in our lives. He's been a great example of that. He's had several revolutions when it comes to his health, his relationships, his business, and he's a great example of constantly working on themselves, working on their craft, getting better in all areas of life, and staying coachable. That's important to me. The people that I spend the time with is that they stay coachable, is have an open mind. And Bill is one of those people that's open for a challenge, open for a conversation. And I learned so much from his perspective. And it really is exciting to see doing a big commercial deal, doing a small wholesale deal. Everywhere in between is possible. Bill's done it all. He's ran gauntlets around people. He's done hundreds of deals. He's raised tens of millions of dollars and put it to work in all areas of real estate investing. So we're happy to have him on our call today. Let's pick his brain. Let's use his knowledge. Let's create something beautiful. And let's give it up for the man of the hour, Mr. Bill Predebon. GM Bill GM.
What's happening?
Oh, just loving life. Welcome back. Great to see you. There was someone in the chat that said they were working on a ground up project too, so we might have her practice maybe pitching you and you poke some holes in it or something. Because some of these things are just incredible what you're able to do with new construction style. So we've got some new people on the line. We've got some returning veterans. In a broad sense, why do you like ground up more than, what people would imagine a traditional fix and flip, like they make the TV shows about? Those are profitable. People make a lot of money with them, but obviously you've gone a different route. And so tell us, what do you like about ground up versus traditional fix and flip?
Well, I think, good question. Like, it's not necessarily that I like them more. I like good deals.
Well said.
So, if because of, if I was even if I was getting started and the deal was good, I would still do a fix and flip versus a ground up. The market, the first reason I started looking at ground up is the lack of inventory across the country with the decrease of builds that we had for a relatively long period of time due to the crash, and then even COVID, putting a demand on the lack of housing, right? The lack of new construction. Then the other reason is there was a demand for the luxury new construction, or semi-luxury new construction as well in my area, and I believe in most faster growing cities, that sort of thing. And I don't know. I wouldn't put it past it being a fact in a lot of communities, even in some areas of the country that don't aren't growing necessarily at the rate of some of the larger cities, the more moved to cities, but there is still a lack of housing. And then, it's almost like, uh, well, I'll get to that, but the next thing the reason I like it is, and I talk about this in the class, and then what I've found is there are some points to new construction that don't necessarily make it easier, but perhaps make it simpler. Uh, it's a tear down, and therefore, once the house is constructed, with typically your help, depending on your experience or what you want to do, um, I don't suggest going way outside of the box when you're building a spec home. It needs to be fairly neutral and relatively consistent with everything else that's going on already. If you're a builder and you're building for somebody else, then it can be as specific as you want, right? It can be as out of the box as the individual buying the house wants. But when you're building a spec home, you know, uh, spec it's spec is speculatory, right? Um, Speculative. You're assuming somebody's going to like it, right? You're speculating what it's going to sell for and based on and that there's going to be a demand for it. So when you think about a new construction community where DR Horton, uh, Shea Homes, Lennar, all of these builders are building, they build spec homes inside of their community lots, right? They sell the specific lots that are upgraded lots and they have a premium. They have their model homes that are just decked to the nines that everybody walks through. And that's the wow factor you see. And everybody wants to be able to add those things to their houses. And they get, because they're building from scratch, they can pick their appliances to a certain time frame. But their spec homes are ones that they build on the lots that will be sold from someone who needs to buy and wants to buy right away. So while they're building the specific homes that are being bought by individuals who buy the lot, then pick their finish and pick their elevation and pick their stuff, right? It's a semi-custom home. They are also building spec homes. When you see their spec homes, they are neutral. They are the most desirable floor plans. There's usually a couple of the two story and then mostly one stories, which sell faster and sell for more. And they're in the average size. They're not the biggest homes on the market, right? Or in their floor plans available. And those sell quickly and those are neutral and people can't add to them, right? You can't go in and buy a spec home and be like, oh, I want to put in Wolf appliances. No, sorry. Even if the thing is just sticks up, they've already picked out and planned for that home. And it's just a matter of you getting in it sooner than if you had to wait in line to be the next one built. So when we're building a spec home from the ground up that we're going to resell in a neighborhood, we want to be relatively familiar and consistent with the rest of the homes that are already built. So unless you're setting a trend and you're building the first, not in the neighborhood, but in the zip code for example, or in the area, not necessarily in the neighborhood. So you have some comparables, right? You know what they look like. You know what the old house looked like. You can go on Zillow and find it, even if you didn't see it before it was torn down. You know how much they paid for the lot that they tore the house down on because that's public record. Now you can see what the size of the house is, the style of house, if there's something for it to view, or if there's other houses in the area that are in the way, then they build a two-story so there's views. And you can see what the other builders have already done. And then you can see what it's sold for, price per square foot. The difference will be, will you upgrade your windows? Will you add more wow factors? Will you finish off the backyard? Right? Will you add a pool? These types of things will bring increased value to your homes, and you can make those small decisions, but you're not making large decisions. You're not deciding to do a 5 bedroom and a 3 bath single family home where everything else is a single story. So, I mean, you can, but you're pushing the envelope. You're taking a bigger risk because there's no precedent, right? So you're looking for that type of thing. And so with new construction, it takes a lot of the guesswork out. When we buy fix and flip, most of the time there it's not a gut, right? You're not gutting the entire house down to the studs and starting over from the inside out. And you can look at the roof and go, yeah, we need a new roof, or you don't. If it's not leaking, you don't put a new roof on because you're going to get a warranty for the buyer, right? You're not putting in a new air conditioner. You're not putting in a new hot water heater unless the damn thing doesn't work, and or unless it breaks in the time that you're selling it, right? But as long as there's an operating hot water heater and it's 15 or 19 years old, you still don't replace it. There's no value in that, right? There's only value in new paint, new cabinets, open floor plan, those types of things. But there's a lot of guesswork on whether or not you should tear out a remodeled bathroom, right? It might not go with the plan that you have. So then you got to spend extra money. There's a lot of guesswork whether or not you should remove a wall, whether or not you should put in an island, what style what price point cabinets you're going to put in, what, so, and when I say guesswork, even if you're experienced, you're still deciding on what someone what's going to, and anytime you do more things to the home, it's going to cost you more money to fix it, replace it, and then sell it. So, and it's going to take you more time to finish. So all of these things are going to factor into your profit. When you have new construction, you literally have no choice. You have to put in new cabinets. You have to put everything in new. And then the trades are all the same. They're going to come in, they don't step on each other's toes. There's an order on how to get the things done. Nobody can bitch at the other person for not getting it done right or doing it wrong because it's going to be passed by the city. You're going to have an inspection on every single phase, and it was done properly, and it was done well, and you pretty much know how much you can know how much your budget is based on what you paid for the lot and what the houses are selling for, because the house down the street that was just built sold for this price per square foot. And whether or not your house is going to sell faster, or um you know sell properly at the right price is your one or two or three wow factors that you put in there. Maybe you put in a really nice glass fireplace, or you put in some sort of upgraded lighting package, or whatever it ends up being. So that's why I do and the bottom line is there is a significant profit to be made versus fix and flip. um I haven't looked at the stats lately, but for example, the average fix and flip fee in Phoenix profits somewhere between 20 and 30,000, really 22 to 25,000. The average fix and flip in Utah, larger major metropolitan areas, is around 40,000 in Utah. And there's a few other states, obviously, and cities that have those ranges, but that's the average. Fix and flips are not six figures. It's just not an average thing. Now you can rehab where you are gutting the entire house and you're putting in 100 grand, you might make 80. Those, I've done that a dozen or more times, but they're few and farther between, right? I typically, I was doing 10 to 20 a year, making 5 to 25,000 a flip. You know what I mean? And that's how you make 250, 400,000 a year, is you're flipping in volume. And sometimes you lose, right? So now you got a couple houses that lose. But when if you do one or two new constructions every 12 to 18 months, you can make multiple six figures on a home, make a couple hundred grand. You do it twice and you make 400 grand for the year. If you're willing to play that game. So I like the bottom line. I did get a chance to talk to Melanie, if I said that right. We've spoken on the phone. She's got my number about this deal. So she is looking for some capital partners we were talking about, and or capital lenders, just depending on person's risk tolerance and that sort of thing. But yeah.
Okay, so Mehelani, are you in a spot where you can come out for a minute and tell us how you found the deal and why you're still pursuing it? Because remember, in the red flags class, Chris Alvin challenges us to look for a reason to not do the deal. And if you don't find a reason, then go ahead and do it. So tell us, a little bit about your process.
So it's scary because I haven't done a ground up before, so this is brand spanking new for me. And I actually found the deal from somebody else in the network, and she posted it in the secret network and saying that a friend of hers has some land that they're trying to get rid of, and it's in East Farmington, so it's right up on the hill. And so I just reached out to her and I said, what are the details of it? Like, is there homes around it? What? And so she said it's an empty lot. It's got an empty lot right next to it. But then there are all these like luxury homes in the area. And so I got in touch with the realtor that has the land, and I went and looked at it. And it's in a perfect spot where if we have a second story on it, you can see the entire valley. It's beautiful. It's in a beautiful spot. And the land is going for 350. And so I have it under contract for 350, but the ARV is coming back at 2.4 mil. And so I have already gotten in contact with the construction and a hard money lender and doing all of that. So I'm just at the point now where I'm trying to find my capital partners to come in with, you know, my holding costs and my closing costs and all of that. But it's a really great, and the only thing that would stop me from moving forward with it is obviously not getting the capital. And there's a pretty steep grade in the back because it's right up on a mountain. I would have to put a lot of my funds into building like a retaining wall or like a tiered up wall, which can get very expensive. And so that's where I'm getting my hang up is trying to find my capital and then deciding if this is going to be worth building that huge wall in the back to support the house.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So it's stretching you as an investor, like conceptually seeing how the whole project's going to come out. What, I had a reassociation with partnerships and with debt and cost when I was listening to Eric Counts a while back. And he was saying that it's interesting to hear people poo-poo a 25% interest on a debt or 30% interest on a debt, but how quick someone's willing to jump into a 50-50 deal. And then he was saying, guys, for the most part, that's 50% interest. I mean, depends on how you structure it, of course. Right. But a lot of people don't connect that and they think, well, I'm going to go 50-50 on this, but I don't want to pay 18 or 22% interest to someone over here who just wants interest on their debt. They don't want ownership. And mistakenly, we think we're saving money by bringing on a partner and giving a percentage instead of a percentage over here. So anyway,
most of them want 18. They want like 12. That's the other half.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And so, Mehelani, what are you thinking about initially offering investors, and what would that pitch sound like? And again, here, guys, I'm not making a stage so that you give her your money. This is the sparring room, right? She's practicing pitching on us. We're going to tell us how it sounds back and forth so that when she goes out in the market later today, she can nail it. Anyway, so yeah, how does that look for the new people you want to bring on?
So with my flips, I've been doing like a 70-30 split on my profits. I don't know if that's typical for, like a luxury build. So I kind of just ran with the same 70-30 split at the end. Still looking at that. We're still looking at a pretty good return. I mean, I have let's see. So the profits I have, if I have like 3 partners in it coming in with capital, they're still coming out at the end at over $100,000 at a 30% split. So like, I'm not sure how I'm obviously new at this. I don't know how to do this, and the numbers are so different than a flip. And when they come in with more money, the split has to be different. Like, I guess my question is how do you do a profit split on something so large and that takes a lot longer to complete?
What do you mean?
Well,
Like when I pitch it to whoever would be interested, I've had a lot of people ask for a pro forma, which I've sent over, but I'm not sure
People
how
that ask
to.
for pro forma, you don't need a pro forma. I mean, they may ask for the numbers, but
Okay.
like it's not really a pro forma. It's not a business. You know what I mean? It's a simple flip. It's still a flip. So like, I mean, a third, you know, um, a uh, so the the easy part is that it's an annual return, right? Most of the time, it's going to take you at least 12 to 18 months to finish the project, right? And
Right.
sell it. Depending on your city and the time frame, back in COVID, it took a year just to get permits. So, one of the things you can do is a note with an extension if you're borrowing money. But if they're partnering with you and you're giving them a 30%, I mean, and they make 100 grand, depending on how much they're putting in, and they're going to make 100 grand in 2 years. That's a $50,000 in 1 year return. So you just divide your investment by your return, right? And that's their number. That's their rate of return, right? So is your question like how do you sell it if it's going to take so long? I mean, most of the time I'm never borrowing money for less than a year anyway on a typical deal, right?
Right.
Like I don't typically borrow money for only 6 months on a fix and flip because that's really shooting myself in the foot. What if something goes wrong on the fix and flip? Like fix
Right.
and flips are not 90 days. They're just not with construction and sales, right? So
Right.
I borrow it for a year, but they're paid back at the sale of the home. And then we renew the note if there's another one, right? So they have a lien on the property typically. And then once the house sells. So same thing with a new construction. They just know that it's a longer process. So I would borrow it for 18 months with a 6 month automatic extension, or, I don't want them to necessarily want their money back at 12 or 18 months if I'm not done with the project. However, um, it's negotiable if I don't want to lose their money just because they don't want to they don't want to wait till it sells. So I might take the money anyway and deal with it at the end, right? And just cross that bridge.
Right.
Um, you know, Most of the time they understand that it's gonna, I'll let them know it could be longer. And typically I usually build in some sort of um extension into my note when I do it. And a lot of times they don't even recognize it or see it because they don't read the fine print.
Okay.
Definitely not, necessarily walking through the entire note with them. Some people take it to their attorney, and if they do, the attorney will probably notice it if they're a good attorney, and they will let them know that this note has an automatic 6 months extension. I've had people that have said, "Hey, my note's due," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is." I said, "Do you need your money?" Because we actually have an automatic 6 month extension. Um, if you need it, I'll bridge you out. But if you don't mind keeping it for another 6 months, you're still making the same interest over 18 months instead of a year. Oh, no, that's fine. Right. But they never read it in the beginning. They're typically I go over everything verbally. But anyway, so I don't know if I answered your question. Typically, or generally speaking, like I said, the sales pitch on a partnership with a new construction is number one, it's in by numbers, it's technically a little less risky, right? Their money is secured in second position. So if you think about you're buying it for 350,000, once you buy the land, you take out the land note if it's not the same lender with the construction loan. The construction loan is 1.5 million, whatever it ends up being to cover the land and the construction costs. And then they're in for 300,000. So they're typically going to be in at less than 80 cents on the dollar in second position. Their CLTV, their cumulative loan to value, first and second, construction loan and them added together is less than 80% of the value. Well, less than 80% of 2 million is a $400,000 equity position, right? So you could screw it up a little bit and they're still safe, right? If you think about a fix and flip and you buy it for 200 and you have a loan for 180 and you borrow 50, right, for carrying costs and fix up, and you're into it for, what would now be 250, and you're trying to sell it for 310, and something happens and you're into it for 270, and then it actually only sells for 290, they have like 5% equity at a CLT.
Yeah.
It's a much higher risk on a fix and flip, even though it's less money. But no one wants to lose money necessarily if it's big or small, right? It just seems like it's a bigger risk because they're putting in more money, but they really have a lot. And if you do the numbers right on new construction, you should have more equity and more. There should be a larger loan to value position percentage wise than on a fix and flip, right? Fix and flips, the numbers are tight. Even when you think you're going to make 50 grand, you end up making 30. You know what I mean? If you're lucky, most of the time, I'd like, I'm sure there's people that can definitely argue against that. And perhaps their first or second deal turned out fantastic. But, overall, that's generally speaking the truth. And from experience, of doing over 200 of these things. So in a really good market. I mean, I did it in a really good market at really good times. But so the pitch is, the equity position they'll have, the security they'll have, and the larger profit they'll have. They'll generally speaking be making more unless you're borrowing the money on a note. But if you're partnering with them, the downside typically is that you just don't make as much. You make 100 grand instead of 200 grand or a $250,000. Or in your case, if it's at real 2.4 and you end up being into the thing for, let's just call it, 1.4 or 1.6, and you make sales costs a couple hundred grand and carrying costs, and you make 600,000 or 500,000, and you're giving them, I don't have a calculator right here, but if you're giving them 30% of 500,000, of course, is 150,000. Divided by, let's just say they put in 300. Yeah, if they put in 300,000, that's a 50% return on their money if you do it in 12 months. If you did it in 2 years, it's still a 25% return. They put in 300 grand and they make 75 grand a year for 2 straight years, right? Based on $150,000 profit of 30% of 500 grand. That's a 25% annual return 2 years in a row. Like, it's unprecedented. It's unheard of. And it's secured by real estate.
Yeah.
So that's the pitch, if those are the numbers. But if you're saying 2.4, now going back to what you did say, if there is a hill and there is no driveway and it's on a hill and there's no road to this lot, is there a road to the lot already?
There is. Yep, there is. And the land itself is flat. It's just the hill in the back. So we'd be able to easily put a driveway in and a garage. So the home will
How
be
big's the
level.
lot?
It's 0.43.
Okay, but the lot is flat. The lot has been already, so there's no excavating you don't need to do.
There will be when we put the basement in and everything. It will
Oh,
need
yeah.
to be excavated, yeah.
But the trucks that go up there to do excavation don't have to go up some non-existing road.
Oh, no. It's all
That is
paved.
expensive. In Phoenix, if you had to do that, and there's hills all over Phoenix and mountains, when you add in excavating, it's anywhere from 50 to 150,000 easy If it's a luxury lot on Camelback Mountain, you're talking about, you know, $250,000 to $500,000 of excavating just to drive the trucks up there, dig out the rocks and flatten the lot. And you know, obviously in Arizona, flooding is a major issue when it rains. So you've got to do, you do have to do retaining walls. There's going to be a lot of, you're going to have other entities involved, but it doesn't sound like that here. And I don't know that you would have to put up the retaining wall yourself. Someone that might be something that someone would want to do. It might be a better selling feature. I would just find that out. You'll need to get an engineer to look at that.
Okay. Okay.
But typically your architect that's designing that should have that experience and they'll know.
Yeah.
And they'll have the contact for that estimate.
Yeah, he was telling me that when he went to go look at the lot, he said that the lot is in a good spot. And he did consider his bid of $1 million to include that wall. So I just would hate for him to get into it and, you know, you run into you're always going to run into something. And so that's my worry, is that it's going to run into a very huge cost with the wall. But he from just looking at it, he said it doesn't look like it's going to be a very big deal. It will be, depending on what type of materials we use. But he said it's doable and that it's good. So I just worry. I worry about, you know, but looking at the numbers, it's something that can be a fantastic deal, but I bring up the time frame and people run. And so they want the quick 6 to 8 month turnaround. And when I say it could take, you know, up to 18 months, and they're like, well, we're actually looking for something that's quicker. So that's my run-in is I've pitched it to quite a few people, and most of the time I'm looking for something quick and fast.
And these people, how much are you asking for?
So a grand total of 482.
And there's people that have $480,000 that they're interested in doing a deal with you, but they want it done quick. I mean,
They want it done fast, yeah. And
where
so
are they getting the money from? Do you know?
No, they didn't say. There was a couple people that said that they have like equity, like home equity. They wanted to use their line of credits for that, and so they don't have like the full amount. So I was looking for like maybe 2 or 3 partners that could come in that we could split it with. But most of them are just like it'll take too long. They don't want to tie up their money for that long.
Yeah, that's odd. That is odd because I mean, if you have a home equity line and in that case, you'd want to pay them monthly.
Right.
Maybe
right.
not a full thing, but you could use their money to pay their own equity, so they're not paying the monthly payment, which is kind of a pain in the butt to have to borrow money. But I mean, if you can borrow money and get into a deal, you're essentially getting an infinite return because it's not even your money.
Right.
The lender's money. It's their equity they're using. It's not even cash that they had to pull out from stock or somewhere or savings or retirement. So it's in theory their return minus their monthly payments is an infinite return. it's
Yeah.
it's
Right.
yeah, but so that to me, if they're educated, would be a no-brainer. So it is a little so you know, I would go back to them and just, you know, if someone said they wanted quicker, I would ask them what they mean by quick. And, you know, if they're looking for just you know, fix and flip types returns, and I would do a small comparison like I just did as far as
Right.
you know, as far as security and risk tolerance goes and the risk that's involved. The other thing I would do is, you know, depending on what you're doing and what your hard money lender is going to do, you may want to acquire the land first and then you use their money to pay for the architect and pay for all the development and the permit stages. And so, and you're paying the hard money lender. And then once you have that permit in hand, that's either ready to be stamped and approved, then you go get your construction loan, which would take them out.
Oh.
And then you could ask them at that time if they're interested, or you could go to the other person who said it's quick. That might be a 4 to 6 month process to get that stamped plan, maybe 3 to 4 months. They get their money back, and now you got someone for a year, because you can typically build it in a year, not 18 months. But when you combine the plans and permitting with the construction, is the 18-month time frame plus sales.
Right.
But if you get the job done in 12 months and get it on the market, nobody's going to be like, "Yeah, I want my money back." You're going to be like, "Well, wait till it sells." It's on, they're not going to foreclose on you. They'll just extend it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so you could play a little bit of a game with the lender, but the other thing would be just to, compare the risk that they're willing to take, or find out where their money's coming from, and find out, what, generally speaking, like, if you guys and girls think about it, is if someone's making money with their money, the longer term play, like day trading, is risky. It takes work and education, right? Fix and flip is a job. It takes a skill set. It takes a lot of moving factors. There's a lot of involved, right? When you go to a financial planner, they put you in long-term, medium, low, and higher risk yield types of investments that are not being sold in 1 year unless it's put away for a long. So people that want their money to be flipped in a short period of time are uneducated. It's probably because they don't know any better, or they don't understand, because it's not a thing that is typical. Like, if you it doesn't it's almost like anything that people say when there is an opportunity to make a lot of money in a short period of time, it is high risk. It typically doesn't work out. And the people that are doing it probably don't know what they're doing. And I know this from both sides of the coin, right? Being the one who's given the money and taking the money. There's always far more. There's just not such things unless you are a professional doing that, like a fix and flip, or like a day trader, or like a Bitcoin buyer, and you're going to move it in cyber currency, or you're going to, even an IPO. An IPO is a long-term, short-term investment, right? It doesn't, you know what I mean? You've got to invest the money. The person has to, the company, the people doing the IPO have to build it up. They have to generate income, and then they have to pay somebody to take it to the public and then launch it, and then you get your return. It's not an overnight process. So anybody that thinks that now, it's not a 10-year plan like a retirement plan, but it is definitely not a quick turnaround. People that go ahead, Don. I don't know if you're trying to come off mute. No worries. People that a year investment is not a long time. Almost 95% of my notes, I would imagine, are, all right, buddy. Good to see you, though, Don. Love you, brother. I'll take care of that. I got that thing for you, by the way. I'll send that over. A year investment is not a long time. Most of my notes are a year, and I get them done sooner. Naturally, the deal gets done sooner, but it's and then they're paid off, with the sale of the property. But I definitely don't want to strap myself to a 6-month note unless I'm doing like a quick 4-month note. When I do 4 months notes, I know I'm probably going to have to bridge it out, refinance it out, or something to that nature. Or I do the property in stages. Like I said, I'll buy the land first, or the land with the house on it. I'll have money for the tear down, money for the architect, money for the carrying costs, and money for the plans. And I'll use those funds. And then that's just enough money to get me to where I need to get my new construction loan. And then I take everybody out with the new construction. I get a new private money equity partner, and then they've only need it for a year, right?
Huh.
So
I didn't know you could do that. I will probably run my numbers again to at least acquire the land first, and then and then lock down the construction loan and everything.
Yeah,
I didn't used to
100%.
do
I
that.
almost always close with, because hard money lenders are sometimes different than construction money lenders, right? They're both hard money lenders, but a lot of hard money lenders don't do construction loans. They simply just do fix and flip loans. So they know if your exit is 6 to 12 months with a new construction loan, whatever, they're fine. And they'll go in at 80% on the dollar for the land. You know, you'll put 20% down, you'll carry it, you'll make a monthly payment and all that stuff. There's no construction draws or anything because you're not doing construction yet. You're just doing all the planning. Then you go get the construction loan. The construction lender is going to want to be in first place, first position. So they'll take out the hard money lender that bought the land, and then they'll include that as their major part down, and then they have their construction draw in the back. And then you typically won't even have to put any more money down because you already put 20%, man. You might even get a holdback from the construction lender because they only require 90% of the purchase price and you put 20% down with the hard money lender. So you'll get money back, but they'll hold it back till you get till you tear the house down or until you build the foundation first. Then they'll give you that holdback and start giving you draws.
Oh, that sounds a lot better. I love that. I love that.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna run numbers for that and see if I can swing it that way.
Yeah. And typically that would be a 3 to 6 month plan for their money, and then they can get their money back quicker. And then the next person can come in, like I said, for a year or 9 months or whatever it's going to take to build, and you should be fine.
Okay. Beautiful. I appreciate that. Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
Perfect. A new perception.
Yeah. It was something I was going to mention yesterday. You'd spent a lot of time, and I know a lot of these people were on here. And folks, if you got thoughts, comments, questions, but you spent a lot of time, Mike, yesterday on the marketing compensation plan, the marketing ins and outs, getting 5-star, then building 5 stars, then having 5 stars build 5 stars, explaining a nice comprehensive understanding of the business model that we have here at Renatus. And for example, this ties in she is one of the things that you don't have to wait for, no matter what stage of your career you're in, is to do new construction, right? What I mean by that is when I look back, fix and flip was the natural progression for me. I also had blinders on, if you can imagine. I came from a position of desperation. I came from a position of being broke. I came from a position of, needing to make money. And it's really not how you want to go about being a real estate investor and a business owner. Okay. And so the idea would be to actually have a business plan, right? I had no plan. I didn't have a real estate business plan. So we could have a business plan and you can, jump into anything that you want to choose to do, which is for her, this new construction deal, right? Even though it's scary and it's her first one, it's not any more scary than a fix and flip. Then, in fact, as she learns this process a little bit, it's actually less scary because of what I talked about earlier on a very broad stroke. But when you look at the details of a fix and flip and everything else, there's actually less scariness to it when you really look at it. Now, when we look at the marketing and or whatever decision you make in your real estate investing career, as you move forward, even your very first decisions, and even now as experienced, you guys have been, and girls have been here a little while, some of you, and you're making decisions. The number one thing about everything that Michael talked about and everything I'm talking about, the two of them together, even though they're separate pieces, is that the action needs to be taken. And I know you know this, so I'm going to probably stumble over my words here on how I'm saying this, but like it takes initiative, and although that we Michael shares, for example, all of this information with you yesterday, those things should be something that we want to reinforce, but we should already know, right? We should know what the business model is. And it may not be that you want residual income, so it will vary a little bit, but you should understand how to get it, right? You should understand where you find all the information to understand your business when it comes to how to get 5-star, what your splits are during the time frame of the 5-star, understanding the compensation plan, and then also understanding how you're going to go about marketing. And it takes there is a way that we always hear, that you want to leverage, you want to have support, you want to build a team. But it is true that if it's going to be, it's up to me, right? So in the beginning on anything, and then throughout this process as a business owner, even if you start to become, leveraged and you allow other people to do most of your work for you, do 80% of it when you get back 20% of your time, whatever the case is, there's still a point where you're doing the work first, right? And so what I'm getting at is that we can give you as much information and the education can give you as much information, but it is a reference, right? It is a learning point. It is a beginning stage. And then you develop your own decisions and business model and business plan. And then you have to engage that plan. You have to take the steps to do it. I don't know many people in Renatus for as long as I've been around that I've seen on my team and other teams that have created, I don't want to say a lot of success, but just, measurable success by having someone else do it for them and having someone else teach them well, what do I do when my my website, my commissions aren't showing up, this guy, and then we ask somebody else to solve our problems. I'm not saying anybody here is doing that. I'm just saying, I'm kind of exaggerating this so you understand my point. Most people that I've seen, not everybody, but most people that I've seen have a measurable success in both the real estate, the marketing, both combined, just the overall Renatus wealth cycle plan, and have gone out and raised capital and done things, and made money in real estate or bought a home and maybe had some stumbles as well. I'm not talking about perfectness, but they have taken the initiative. They have gone out on their own. They're not coming to the community necessarily and sitting there and going, I need this, I need that. They're actually taking from the Renatus wealth cycle, right? The resources, and then they're applying them out in the real world, right? They're becoming a marketer. They sign up for an ICM and they go home and they open their business back office almost, if not every day. And they're watching the 10-step program that Bob teaches without being told to do it. If that makes sense. I hope you're probably picking up what I'm putting down at this point, but the greatest thing too is that they do come back to a call like this and they ask for help, or they bring up their scenario and they talk to Michael and have a specific question because they'll wait their turn and they'll sit there and they'll listen to all the stuff they already know and that they already went to the back office and they already know the comp plan and they already know that they should be, how much they're going to make on their fifth sale. And, if they sell more commission than the 50,000, they're actually going to get 100% of that commission when they add up all their commission values that they've sold. They know all these things, but they have a question because they encountered something they didn't experience or they don't remember hearing. So they come back to the call and go a whole hour to maybe able to ask their question. Then they take that question, boom, and they go off and apply it again. And I'm not saying again that none of you aren't doing that. I'm saying, for ourselves, I've seen lots of the people that I have seen have measurable success to some degree. They are the entrepreneur. They are the risk taker. They are the one doing the work, applying the knowledge, taking as much of the resources they can from the calls, the community, the home team, the back office, the educators, and the classes, and then they're applying it, and then they come back and give it back to other people by sharing their stories and their knowledges. Okay. In my opinion, if I bring an equity, okay, cool. Let's get to this collapse. If I bring an equity partner that has an HELOC and he has an interest that needs to be paid monthly, do I need to count those numbers also as an expense? In my opinion, that's part of their own. Okay, so I love what Tim says here. In my opinion, that's part of their own expense. They are using the bank's money to make money. It should. So I have to agree. Now, what that means, what Tim is saying is exactly true. I don't care where you get your money from. If you're my money partner, I don't care if you borrow from your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, the bank, your retirement account. I don't care if it costs you fees. I don't care if what it costs you to get in the deal. If you can use arbitrage and get into my deal with someone else's money, including the banks, your equity, whatever, that's someone else's money, right? You haven't sold your house to get it, so it's not cash on hand. If you're using arbitrage and someone else's money, then you're coming into my deal essentially, right? With zero at risk, right? Zero of your own money, but you are borrowing some, so you're putting your credit on the line, right? Then your money that you make from me will pay back that money that got in. So you might not make the full 75%, but you're willing to split the 75% with somebody else, if that makes sense. You're willing to pay the bank so that you can get in a deal and make 75% return, just like Tim says. So my answer to this, though, the caveat is that if I have somebody and I say that, they're going to be like, well, how the hell am I going to make the monthly payment? I can't do it. I'm out. I want them to be in, right? Especially if they're my own. So I'm not going to up their amount of equity, but I'm going to help them pay the monthly thing so that they're not coming out of pocket. They're not having to worry about having extra stress every month if they have to borrow money to get in. So I want to make it more convenient for them to get in, even though they're borrowing the money. They're still going to pay the juice at the end of the day, but I may have to spot the person, the money, the juice. So I'm going to use their own money to pay their own money back during the time that I'm holding the process, right? But at the end of the day, that's going to come off the top, or it's going to apply to the whole deal, and it's not going to be part of the profit that we would have normally had, right? If I have to spend 100 grand carrying it for 2 years for this person and we make 300, then we really only made 200. Or we made 300,000 and then they get their portion and they can pay back the 100 even though I've already paid it. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If you have any questions, just chat it or shout it out if that doesn't make sense. But I don't necessarily want to kick a blender out of bed just because they can't afford to come in and they have a resource to bring it in, right? But I definitely, on the other hand, don't want to go behind their back and like go borrow someone else's money and cut them out and go straight to the source. Like that would be wrong too. Not that you would do that, but are you familiar with building subdivisions? I'm looking at something I am unfamiliar with how much it's going to take to get the raw land into buildable lots. This is for land that's approved for 38 lots at 25 acres. So I've not built a subdivision. First thing I would probably do is try to get it under contract. So then I could go have educated conversations with people that probably might go behind my back.
I think he already has this one under contract.
Great. I would consider partnering or hiring a builder that's built them. I had I was a part of starting a company called REWW, Real Estate Worldwide, with Kent Clothier in the mid-teens. And he had a right-hand guy named Colby and his partner, Eddie, Colby and Eddie. And I remember being on calls like this and stuff like that. And it's a long story, not a long story, but there's some moving parts to it. But they got this subdivision under contract in Chandler, Arizona. And they had no idea what they were doing. And I remember them talking, oh, we're builders now, look, your dreams can come true, blah, 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 blah. They lost their ass. They lost their ass. They had to give the property up. They got out of it. But there was a lot of money, and everybody involved had to pivot. It was an absolute mess. I think building 3 or 4 homes on a cul-de-sac is different than a subdivision. I think that there's a reason that some people take raw land and entitle it, and that's their job and their niche. They don't entitle the land and then build the sticks and then sell the homes, right? There are companies that do the entitlement. They buy the raw land. They put in all the infrastructure. They bring in utilities, whatever. And then they sell that land entitled to the builders, right? Shea Homes, whatever it is. They come in. Each person and entity or group or business has a business model. It is not start to finish. Typically, I'm not saying they don't do it. I'm sure that there are cases where Lennar Homes and all these great builders have done it, but you may want to consider 38 lots is a lot. I can't fathom the amount of money that it would take to build 38 homes. And it's not impossible. The majority of it, 70% of it is going to be what we call debt. It's going to be conventional money from some sort of fund that is going to fund it. That it's not credit based, but it will require good credit. It will require reserves. It will require experience. There's no way a lender is going to lend $50 million to John Doe who's never done a build like this before. You are going to have to be in bed, in my opinion. I could be wrong. You're going to have to do a lot of research then, but most people want experience. I have someone right now, she wants to build a new house and she's asking me to be on the loan because the lender won't lend to her. She has no fix and flip experience at all. They want 3, 4, 5. They don't want it from 10 years ago either. When they call me, they want experience from the last 3 years. They want to know that they've done something. Now, it's not single family only, one deal aside. But it is when you're borrowing this type of funds for these types of projects, there's experience involved. So I would find someone if I wanted to do this, whether I was just going to entitle the land or I was going to do the whole deal. I would find a builder that's done it. I would find an architect. For example, I'm building 6 units on one of my properties. It's only 6, but I haven't built 6 apartments before, right? And I went to a different architect. I went to an architect that has built multiple multi-units, 40 units, 30 units, right? It's the same guy I went to when I was going to build the 79 units. And they know everything about it, and they know the people that come in and work with them that they rely on, that they coach all the way through it. It's a whole different a lot of these types of architects are no longer just, I'm going to get your plans to stamp, and then if you need me, just call me, but it's going to be per diem every time I come out there or send a structural engineer, I'm going to get paid, right? These guys and girls walk you, they are literally like a partner. They're going through every step of the way, every phase of the construction, every phase of it. They're working with all the people because all those builders and those certain trades are relying on exactly what the structural engineer and the architect and his architectural firm have thought the way to make it work so it doesn't fall down and kill anybody. They all work together. So it's all the way through the process. It's a whole different world. So I would find an architectural firm that does this, and I would find a builder from that architectural firm that typically hires them to do these things, right? And then those people, those builders usually know where they buy the entitled lots from, because typically lot builders, they're construction guys that own a building company. Maybe their dad or grandfather started it or grandmother, and they took it over. And so they don't really have experience in buying unentitled raw land, right? So if you've got raw land, that's a whole different, you've got 3 different phases to get to before you even sell the houses. I don't know if that helps, Tim, because like I said, I don't have a lot of, I have some conceptual, I've gone through some meetings and some architectural dealings in doing this, but I've never done it myself. I've never gotten that far. Yep.
And I guess that's where you come in with the whole, I'm going to give you 10%, 15% interest on what I owe you, or I'll bring you in as a partner and cut you in on the profit, or a mixture of the two. I'll pay you a little bit of your fee now, and if you wait till the project is done, you get your fee plus a bonus. And things like that are covered in negotiations, right?
Yeah, and well, negotiations, but first of all, I've never watched the land development class, so you may want to watch that class a couple times. I don't know if that's in there. The raw land stuff is in there. Number two is I do have experience in raising capital, and this would be some sort of fund that I would not necessarily have a licensed fund by any means, but I would have a fund, a personal fund, where there are limited partners, right? And then there are general partners. And I would be a GP, and you're giving up 70% perhaps of the equity, of the profit of the equity to the limited partners that are coming in with 100 grand, and it's going to be proportioned based on, maybe you have a $50,000 minimum investment. You do a long-term capital raise, and you give away 70% of the profit, and you keep 30 for you and your GP that are going to run the project, right? This is where you're not a majority owner. You are a general partner, but you have probably make the least amount of profit. So like if somebody came in with all of the money, they would be you would give them 70% of the deal, because that's what you're going to need to get this done. And you're talking about a long-term process. 38 lots, you're probably going to build in 3 or 4 phases, from, 10 lots at a time. You're talking about perhaps a 3-year project, in my opinion, at least 2 from ground up, building in phases and selling off, and then paying some of the people back a percentage of their investment, and then the rest keeps being transferred to each phase, as I'm building them. Like, these are all things I have no idea if it's in the land development class or not, but these are things I've experienced and have discussed. So when we've raised money for large projects, 50, 200 unit apartment buildings, when we've raised money for Oak Island, 9 units out there, $2.5 million, we're giving away a percentage of the equity to the limited partners in general, and then they get a percentage of that large pot based on how much money they're willing to put in. And so they're a long-term partner, and they understand that it's a long-term project. And then and so yeah, and then the negotiation would come from there. But you kind of, but you're talking about 38 houses. You make 100 grand a house. You know what I mean? Do the math. You're making 4 million, or is it 40 million?
I don't know if you know Bob Tierney. I don't know who that was asking question. He does have, he's part of the 58 houses project in a subdivision, although it's a different situation because the builder went bankrupt, so they're actually buying the property, the land from the HOA. So they already did all the build, not the builder, the developer part of it. So they're just only doing the building. But I know they were, raising funds um from the community, and then there are some people that are part of that, even when they were building their model home. So
Yeah. So, again, it's not that they haven't experienced some things, but they haven't experienced everything, right? So to go to
no.
some for
Mm.
advice when they haven't done the project would be risky, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, but I think Nathan is, he's the main partner in that, and he's done a lot of um, this kind of stuff, and I think he's he does all the stuff
right.
in there. But yeah, if you know Bob Tierney, hit him up.
Yep. So, Freddie, I hope I answered your question. When it says, do I need to count those numbers also as an expense? That's going to be entirely up to you, but typically it's going to be, like Tim said, the expense of the person bringing the money, but you want to help them offset that expense, especially if it's a monthly expense and they don't want to take that on. Um, and then Tim, I'm not sure. I guess your question was, am I familiar? And obviously I gave you as much familiarity as I am aware of, I think, unless you have a more specific questions to that and expand on what I've said and what you asked. But anyway, I love this kind of goes back to what I was saying and what Michael was talking about yesterday is, from the new construction that Milani was talking about to what Freddie was talking about, and then all the way down to what Tim's talking about. These are people that are not that everybody else isn't. Go ahead, Freddie. Did you have a question?
Yes, really quick. It just follow up on the HELOC because I have most of the people that I've been helping is they just using their HELOC. And so some of them we have been able to flip the home and sell the home and then give the money back. But the main question for me it'll be because sometimes we cannot give them all back because we had to refinance the home and then we had to hold it. And then how do you guys or what's your guys' experience when you had to hold it for a period of time and their HELOC is still on the deal?
So this is a great question. And this, I guarantee far more people experience this crap than Renatus or any real estate community ever leads on to. Because people underestimate, we're inexperienced, and we are overzealous, and myself included, and the deal isn't that good. So we end up having to hold the deal. So first of all, number one is the bottom line is anybody putting money in, time, effort, energy, whatever it is, anybody in the deal is taking a risk. And the risk involved is when it doesn't go well or doesn't go as planned, we typically don't plan for when it doesn't go well or as planned. We probably don't have a clause in any type of contract, if we even have a contract with them, or some sort of operating agreement that states if we have to hold the project, this is what we're going to do, right? Which means that, oh, you're going to have to pay for this, I'm going to have to pay for that. So unfortunately, we have to work through it as it comes, right? And the truth is, the real bottom line in a court of law is, well, I'm no lawyer and I'm not a judge, so don't check your professional help. But if you think about it, and the contract is you bring in the money and I do the deal, and now you end up having to hold the property. The person that brought in the money is responsible for the money. If the bank doesn't care where the money went or what happened, so whoever lent them the money to get into the deal wants their payment. And if that's the case, then that person that borrowed it is responsible for it. Unless somewhere else in your contract says that if we had to hold the property, I'm responsible to pay you to pay the bank that you borrowed the money from. And that's probably not the case. So there's risk involved in those things when you have to hold it. Now, if it's going to be detrimental to the person, there's a couple ways to round it, right? One would be you just do the natural good thing would be, okay, I'm going to go ahead and we're holding the property and it's cash flowing a little bit of money, and we're going to take that money and pay the thing and call it a day, and we'll split the profit, whatever's left over according to what our splits are. Okay, so now you're being the nice guy, right? And you just wait till you sell the house because you feel bad that it didn't sell on time or the plan didn't go the way it was supposed to. We were supposed to flip it and you had to hold it, and you feel guilty, or you feel like, it's your responsibility. That's entirely up to you and how you want to handle it. But in reality, it could be like, listen, you're in trouble. You borrowed money to get into my deal. My deal went this way and now we're holding it, but you still got to make these payments. I'm going to help you make the payment, but it's going to come out of your profit. Or you've got a problem that maybe you both split it. Maybe if you're 70% partner and he's 30% partner, you split the downside by 70-30. Or you just split the downside by 50-50. He comes in 50, you come in 50, you make the payment every month. If there's money coming in from the cash flow of the property while you're holding it, you use part of that to pay it, and you work something out that's acceptable to both of you. Again, if I think about this and I'm the flipper and I've got to hold a project, that means I probably didn't get paid. I probably worked for however long, right? I probably did all the work. Found all the deal and it didn't sell and I had to hold it. And then I had to refinance it or I had to get it into a position of holding and I've got to get different insurance on it. Now I've got to get a renter and I'm doing all this work for freaking free. But this person over here who came into a free deal with no money of their own, they just borrowed the money. They used arbitrage to get into my deal to make 30%. I'm going to help pay half their stuff. Well, then I'm out half my stuff, right? Because I'm not getting anything in return, right? I'm not getting paid for property management and all that. And I'm not saying you're doing all that, but all these factors, all we care about most of the time as inexperienced and even experienced investors is the money. That's all we ever care about, right? It's, oh, this guy's got to come out of pocket. That's the risk, bro. Like that's the risk they took of getting in the deal with you. So that's why people get lawyers most of the time, because lawyers know what the problems are. They've had experience in these things going wrong. So they begin to build these big contracts for all of these things that could go wrong. So everything's addressed. So when this happens or that happens or this happens or that happens, whatever, and none of it may happen. So then you wasted all this money on things that never happened. But if they do happen, there's no renegotiation. There's no working it out. There's no arguments. It's already stated in the contract what you're going to do when this happens. So that's where all the lawyers get involved, but it's expensive as shit and nobody has enough money to go ahead and do that up front. So they don't worry about that. All they worry about is how they're going to exit. And when the exit doesn't work, now you've got to go back to the drawing board, watch the negotiations class again, and you've got to negotiate on behalf and still be diplomatic and still be fair to your money partner. You don't want them bad mouthing. You don't want them running, losing their house because they have a home equity line they can't pay for. But at the same time, you're not in charity because you're not a millionaire yet, or you're not up retired yet doing charity work. You're still working for a living. So you've got to balance that. There is no right way or wrong way to do it. It's whatever the two of you can come to a meeting of the minds of and figure it out. Most of the time, as the investor, as the job owner, as the guy or the girl running the show, we take the short end of the stick. We give more back to our investors because we're obligated. We feel that's not business. Donald Trump doesn't do it that way. Donald Trump does it according to the plan. Not that it's good, but that's why he's ahead. That's why right now he's the president for free, right? He's not taking a salary. He's doing it because he can. He's giving back to the country, in my opinion. But that's not a political thing either. It's just my opinion. I'm just saying there's people that get to a point where they can volunteer their time. But we're mostly, none of us are at that point where we want to be volunteering time except at a food bank. So you've got to consider those things when you're renegotiating. And basically, you're going to have to renegotiate because most likely we did not plan for us to hold the property. So in that case, you want to look to refinance them out of the money. Maybe you find a private money investor to bridge them out. You say, you know what, it didn't go well. You got to make this payment. Let me get you your money back and you take no profit at all. I'm going to hold the property. I'm going to get a new partner that's interested in a longer term thing that has the money, and I'll use their money to pay your HELOC off and you walk away, right? Maybe you get rid of these partners that have this problem, but the deal is, like Tim said, is listen, if I go to Michael and I'm like, hey, Michael, I need 20 grand to do this deal, or 100 grand, and Michael sells a Bitcoin and Bitcoin shoots up to, 200,000. He's like, I want my money back. I'm like, bro, that's the risk you took. Like, I'm not going to give you 100,000 just because the coin went up, or vice versa. If someone takes out money and, they have to promise to pay their parents back for the money, that's between them and their parents. What's owed between me and you is what we agreed to. And if we don't flip the house and I got to hold it, then I can't be responsible for where you got your money from. That was your deal. If you don't have a plan B or a plan C with whoever you borrowed the money from, then that's between you. Now, again, you're my partner. I don't want to screw you and you screw your parents over. So we're the smart ones. We're the educated ones. We're the ones doing the deal. We should come up to a plan together. The problem is somebody's usually pissed off at this point because it didn't go the way it went. And we, as the owners and the educated people, or the people that are doing the deal, we kind of expect it sometimes to happen. So we're a little more forgiving with the thing not going right, and we're having to hold it, and we're more accepting to these problems than the money people who had a deadline and they didn't get the deadline. So then we feel bad when really we shouldn't. Yeah, you got it. No problem, Freddie. All right.
Yeah, it's well said. And it comes down to the same thing with funding someone's education. I have a lot of people, their brother, their sister, their mom, their dad with the HELOC idea. Okay, well, if you got to borrow the HELOC at 6% and you want them and they want to make 6%, then work it out with them to pay 12%, just knowing that 6 is going to the bank and 6 is going to your partner. And we funded a lot of education that way too. So it's not just real estate.
Yep.
Sweet. All right.
And
Well, great
again,
discussion, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's making a difference. And like you were saying earlier, these people are getting these ideas. They're going out, taking action, and we for months or even years. And I think that's a good thing because it's working, and they got what they needed, and they're back in action. Mehlani, Freddie, Steve, all of you participating, making a difference. Thank you, Gilda. Great to see you, Erica.
Yep. Good to see you, Erica.
Awesome.
Doug. Everybody. Scarlett's always here.
All right, folks. Well, let's go make a difference.
It is over here.
Yeah. Corey, Ben, Heidi. Today's the last day before the price goes up on the early bird discount.
Yeah, I'm going to be calling.
E3. So they'll thank you.
All right.
And we thank you for your time and attention, Bill.
Appreciate everybody. Michael, thank you for teeing it up.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Bill.
We'll
Thank
see
you,
you next week.
Michael.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.